Hello, it's Stuart the Unrepentant Atheist, back with another clip, which I do hope you'll find interesting. I remember this call some time ago. It irritated me quite a bit because he's one of these callers when you think how to knock some sense into a person, except maybe put a bucket on his head and give it a good hit with a shovel, because this guy is just so bizarre and absurd with the way that he approaches his beliefs, that I think he probably needs something like that, and he didn't really seem by the end of this conversation to make any advancement. So just basically his position is that he accepts all propositions as true until they're demonstrated to be false. That is his epistemological process and reasoning. I call that sort of, I don't know, bizarre reverse reasoning. It's the exact opposite of, you know, I mean, anybody with any critical thinking skills should really take of not accepting propositions until we've got good reason to accept them. In other words, that there's sufficient evidence. Just a quick qualification there. Obviously, I'm not saying that all propositions out there are required to be, I personally require to be demonstrated in order to accept them. Mundane, everyday propositions I will often accept without any demonstration whatsoever, just on somebody's say-so. If somebody tells me they had a Chinese takeaway last night and they had chicken chow mein and beef and black bean sauce or whatever, you know, I'll probably accept that because it's a mundane claim. But if it's not a mundane claim, then I'm probably not going to accept the proposition. I'm not going to say that it's false, but I will reserve accepting it until such a time as it's been properly demonstrated. So I think that probably for most of you out there, that's also your position. But it's not Clint's position. So let's have a listen.
Where you would have to both simultaneously believe it does work and it doesn't work. That is the problem. It's called cognitive dissonance, and this is the thing that skepticism is trying to avoid. Jenna and I can sit here and say, we are not convinced that prayer works, and as soon as you present sufficient evidence that prayer works, we'll accept that. And until such time, there's no reason to think that it does work. Does that mean we're saying prayer doesn't work?
Just, if I could just pop in here, because you didn't hear this part of the conversation. When asked by Matt, does prayer work? What Clint said was only under certain conditions, that the person doing the praying behaves in a certain way. And Matt said, do you mean to say that if I have a headache and I pray for that headache to go away and at the same time take an aspirin, and my headache goes away, you would say that prayer works? So, okay, let's listen to some more.
No.
But that's taking two opposite ends of an argument and working against each other, right? Isn't that already?
Isn't that a definition of argument? You have two possibilities, yes, and you pose the two against each other, and you really argue both sides
yourself, right? I mean,
I argue both sides myself all the time. That's how I got to be able to do this.
Well, okay, but again,
it's no, that's not a joke. Being able to consider both prongs of a dilemma and address them both fairly and determine, do I have reason to believe one or the other? Or if I'm in a position where I don't have reason to believe either, all of those have to be options. That is the process of skepticism that tries to remove the bias that we all feel, because I'm sure at some point, both of us would have loved it if prayer worked.
Okay, I just want to stop because something occurred to me which I thought was a very funny justification Clint gave for his method for knowledge or method for beliefs. He said that he wants to, well, he said that there are truths out there, and he wants to make sure that he believes all the truths that are out there. He wants to make sure that he believes them, and he understands that the price of having those truths in his net of beliefs is that he will also have many false beliefs, but he's prepared to have all those false beliefs in order to make sure that he's got all the true beliefs. So I have actually heard this before. I've heard people saying that they're prepared to take the risk of having a false belief in order to, they're prepared to take the risk, say, of having 10 false beliefs in order to make sure they've got one true belief. Okay, let's listen to more.
Both of us would have loved it if the God that we believed in was real. But we were, as far as we can tell, wrong. Not necessarily wrong about the fact, but wrong in our reasoning that led to that conclusion. And so we scrubbed our brains as best we could of the flawed reasoning. And if there's a God or a supernatural thing that is true and real, it has nothing to fear from inquiry, questioning, doubt. The truth has nothing to fear from investigation. And so if there's a God...
Yeah, but the thing about Clint is he's already said when near the beginning of the conversation, when Matt said to him, well, if you hold the position that positions are true until they're falsified, then you would have to believe in all religions. And he said that he'd been through all the religions and he'd found them all. He'd found all but one to be fallacious. And obviously the one that he found to be unfallacious was Christianity. The unfortunate thing is they spent 20 minutes on this call, and near the end of the call, which you're not going to hear because Jen is about to speak for 3 minutes on something which is very personal for her, and I'm not going to play that through. After that, he then says, well, this is bringing me on to a theological discussion, and I don't really want to get into that. Well, that's a shame, because it's the theology that could have told us why Clint believes in God. It was interesting to hear and also to expose the flaws in his methodology, but it would have been nice to learn what was it about Christianity that he found unfallacious. And he found all these other religions to have fallacies, but he found Christianity to be so true and unfallacious that he believes in the Christian God. Sadly, we never got to discover that, but, well, that's sometimes how calls go on the Atheist Experience. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you'll agree with me that Clint's methodology is completely wacko. Bye for now.